Hey, good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce the next panel. It's the Women Entrepreneurs panel. I know Henry and Quill quickly touched on women founders and the media, and so I think we will get really invaluable insight from this next group of panelists. Through their own career journeys, they have given back to the community in ways such as accessible, affordable healthcare, empowering entrepreneurs through investments, and more. So please give a big welcome to Lenore, Katherine, Riley, and Tracy.
All right. Yay. So real quick, I'll talk a little bit about myself, which is not my favorite topic for any of you that know me, but I feel like it's worthwhile just to talk a little bit about how I ended up here. So quick background, Naval Academy, Marine, did 7 years and transitioned out in 2007. So there's a lot of folks in here that are quite a few years younger, some on the other side, but a lot of the programs that exist today, they just weren't there when I got out. There was no skill bridge, there was no vows, there weren't all these industry support organizations bringing veterans, focused on hiring veterans, all that stuff just wasn't there. No bunker labs, that was 2014. So my story is, I was literally going from being an instructor in Quantico one day, running around the woods in a green tree suit, to the next day, sitting at Merrill Lynch, wearing the most expensive clothes I've ever owned in my life, getting brought around to investment banking interviews. And of course, one of the first questions I get asked is, what does anything you've done before have anything to do with investment banking? And the answer is, well, absolutely nothing, except for the fact that every situation I found myself in, I figure it out, and I quickly learn it and become the best at what I do. One of those kind of answers. But the real pivotal moment for me was when I was walking around and I bumped into a random person with a short haircut, immediately identified him as one of my own, and he said, hey, I heard you're a Marine. I'm like, absolutely, sir. He's like, well, give me your resume, so I'll vote for you later. So at the end of the day, he had ensured that I received a full scholarship to the business school that I was going to be attending. And this was in the days before the post 9/11 GI Bill took effect. So having school paid for was a big deal. And then it also ensured that I was able to get a banking internship and then get a full-time job after that. So literally, it was another Marine that took care of me, changed the course of my life. So that's really how I'm here. And I've tried to do my best every day since to pay that forward, right? So it started with Veterans on Wall Street. Just making sure that any vet that wanted a job, I'd be one of the people that would take the call, pass the resume around. That grew into vows with a bunch of other like-minded co-founders. Going through to today, I am president of the board of Bunker Labs. Absolutely love this organization. It supports this ecosystem. If any of you, again, I know you've heard the pitch a million times, aren't involved, one more plea for me, get involved. If you're in you think you're too far beyond our help, we do have programs that will surround you with like-minded peers, and that will help you grow, or take on the burden of mentorship of some of these younger companies. So we really appreciate your support there. Also, this has been a theme I've been drawn back to time and time again. I recently joined First In. First In is a seed stage venture capital platform, and our mission is to empower entrepreneurs who secure our freedom and provide opportunities for those that have served. There's 5 of us, we're all vets, a diverse team, and we are a seed stage sector focused fund, but we are very much there for this community. That's why we're here. So that is enough about me. The rest of this time is going to be spent on the veterans to my right, and I'd love for each of them to share their stories.
Hello. Thanks, Lenore. Just want to call out also that we represent each of the services here. So Marine Corps, Navy, Army, Air Force. That's pretty cool.
Sorry, Coast Guard. Sorry,
Coast Guard. Sorry. Uh-oh. Any Coast Guard women in the room? Oh, well, not Coast Guard women. Coast Guard woman? Oh my, hey! Okay, well you need to, forgive me. You need to ask a question later, I think, so you can get involved up here too. But yeah, hi everyone, nice to meet you all. My name's Katherine Lynch. Navy vet, was a SWO for about 6 years. I guess I'll start from how I got to the Navy. Grew up in New Jersey, was very privileged to go to an amazing all-girls middle school and high school, which prepared me to go to Harvard. I was a recruited athlete. I played squash all 4 years while doing ROTC down the street at MIT with all the super duper smart engineers. Decided to join as a SWO, was in San Diego for 2.5 years on a destroyer, the USS Preble, woot woot. And then got the opportunity to move to Singapore, where I was part of Desron 7 and the command that helped deploy LCSs, the littoral combat ships, all over Southeast Asia. Then went back to DC and was Admiral's aide to Vice Admiral Moran, who ended up becoming the Vice Chief of Naval Operations. So very rewarding Navy career. Met my husband there. We now have 2 amazing little girls, but decided I wanted to switch into the private sector and ended up, my second job out of the Navy was at Oscar Health. Some of you may have heard of it, but it was one of the first consumer-driven healthcare companies founded in 2012. Spent about 4.5 years there doing a bunch of operation stuff, as you can imagine, coming out as a SWO, lots of ops. And we ended up going public in March 2021, which was an amazing experience. And then kind of looking around for my next thing, and I reconnected with a friend who I knew since freshman year of college, actually. And his idea was, or the problem he wanted to solve was, why the heck won't my health insurance pay for therapy? Like, why is it so freaking hard to get health insurance to pay for my therapist? Like, many of you may have experienced this. And so I joined him in founding Ness, and we are a health and wellness focused credit card. So instead of getting rewards for travel and dining, you get rewards and benefits for health and wellness. The whole idea is to make things that actually get you and keep you healthy more affordable and accessible for people. And we have the long-term vision of being a replacement for health insurance, something that will stick with you long-term for 20 to 30 years instead of the 3 to 4 years that you stick with a civilian health insurance on average. So we can convince health insurance to pay for massages, nutrition, fitness, mental health therapy, women's health stuff that's not covered by insurance now, because it will make you healthier long-term. So you can all sign up for the card actually today with a special offer. But no, it's really cool. Happy to discuss obviously more about that today. But thank you for being here. Thank you for having me here, and very humbled to be up here.
Hello, everybody. Thanks, Context Ventures and Tim and everybody to be here. I live here in San Francisco. I was not here last year. My name is Tracy Baldwin. I am the founder of a company called RokketMed. Let's see, my background, I grew up in South Dakota, and I'm an ROTC grad of the University of Oklahoma, and I was in the Army Nurse Corps. So I was 5 years on active duty, stationed at Lunchtool Medical Center. From 91 to 95, I was one of the nurses that took care of the soldiers that came in after our Black Hawk Down incident, which was quite an experience. We actually had no idea what was going on when these soldiers came in after having this, these helicopters going down, and obviously a terrible situation. We were also there to support the Bosnia-Herzegovina war at the time. So it was an amazing experience. Lunchtool Medical Center and being over in Germany was just honestly some of the best years of my life. Then I came back to stateside and worked at Madigan Medical Center. I was a NICU nurse. So I specialized in ICU, so everything very fast moving, very important and everything. And after 5 years on active duty, it was time for me, I decided to get out and go into the civilian sector. At that time, I was either going to go on to medical school or go on to the business side of healthcare. I've kind of always been an entrepreneur at heart. I started a pet sitting service in my little town of South Dakota at about 12. Quickly outsourced that to my parents. Clearly should have stayed in the industry back then. Much easier than the healthcare world I'm trying to tackle, but here I am. So when I got out of the Army, I knew really clear I wanted to go into sales. I love sales. I love meeting people. I love business development. And honestly, it's probably one of my strengths that is oftentimes overlooked, being an entrepreneur. I will literally get any meeting. Doesn't necessarily mean it'll close, but I have an amazing portfolio of relationships when those businesses and those people are ready to kind of come in my direction of where we want to move healthcare. I'm not going to say disrupt, because RokketMed, we're all about trying to move the industry. So I worked for Johnson & Johnson for 3.5 years in their medical device industry. It was a phenomenal experience. I will argue that they are the best company to go in and learn sales. I also had this incredible brand, so it really builds confidence in approaching anybody at any time. Really important stuff, because when we're startups, nobody knows our brand, right? We still need to try to get that meeting, have that conversation. It's intimidating, right? So having that experience with somebody like J&J. I also had the opportunity to work on the very first medical record, because the Army was the very first organization with electronic health record. So I moved to Silicon Valley in 1999, and I clearly knew I needed to get into software. Not because I wanted to stay in software, but I wanted to bring software into healthcare. I started with the very first mobile app company, which was AvantGo. Many in the room would never know about this company, extraordinarily too early. But it was a very interesting lesson for me as well, being an entrepreneur, understanding two things: your timing. And sometimes we know we're early, and I knew when I founded RokketMed in 2014, I was early in the market, but it allowed me, in having that AvantGo experience, to be very patient, to position myself around the hoop, so that when the market hopefully moved in the direction of which it is, we were going to be somewhere in it and going to be opportunistic. Because AvantGo is nowhere, they had this mobile app technology. We were syncing Palm Pilots. There was no infrastructure. It was a great idea, and, now we're killing it with apps. And then I spent time with a few other startups, went to business school at Berkeley and Columbia, and finished my corporate career before I started RokketMed at PricewaterhouseCoopers, where I had an opportunity to be the dedicated business development for them in working with Kaiser Permanente. So again, my experience has been lenses to the healthcare system in a lot of variety of ways that now gives me enormous credibility when I am trying to meet with CEOs and CFOs, because that's who I want to talk to. RokketMed is a health paid card, so employer-funded health card in the benefits space with a wraparound marketplace. So I started as a marketplace. Think Expedia for healthcare. Transparency is an extraordinarily important buzzword in healthcare. The way we look at transparency is, what is your self-pay price? Other than that, it's too expensive for me to figure out what plan you are, where you are in your deductible, what this plan is willing to pay that provider. What is your cash price when somebody comes in with a high deductible and willing to pay self-pay that you're going to take? So that's how we market transparency. I think it's a very important direction. It's always the most affordable care. So like if you have a $10,000 deductible like we carry, you never hit it, self-pay. So that was the first thing. But how do I close the loop, and how do I sell this to businesses? 4 years ago here in San Francisco, an opportunity presented itself in having a random conversation with the CIO about a law and a policy that exists in this city, because we have a lot of very interesting policies in San Francisco. But it allowed me to move into this benefit space. So now we have a funded card for employers that they can put money on it pre-tax. We focus on the part-time market, the hourly wage, low socioeconomic, think restaurant workers, hospitality workers, and the gig economy, because a lot of people aren't serving that industry. And now there is federal policy also that has come out in 2020. So it's a really great story, and we're just moving in this direction. So we're in market. We have great traction. We have about 35 business clients today. We're targeting our first global national brand that, we're very optimistic will come on board with us. And we have about 1,000 cardholders. And what now does for our marketplace is it brings them value, because we know the demographics. We know these individuals, when we send them to them, have money, so they're going to self-pay, because bad debt and uncollected, et cetera, is a huge issue in healthcare. So that's where we are. That's the area we're trying to solve for. We think there's a real opportunity and a problem.
Who wants to go after that? Doing amazing things in healthcare on our health tech panel here. Hi, everybody. I'm Riley Rees. I'm Air Force. Do we have any Air Force in the room? Pasty Lorena, my master. Woo! Awesome. Very minority. I've met a lot of Navy and Marines here. So a little bit about my background is a little bit different. So I started out wanted to be a doctor and went to school for that. Long story short, I flew home from college, and immediately I was like, whatever just happened in this airplane, I was like, hook, line, and sinker, I was sold. So immediately changed career paths, fell in love with aviation, walked into my recruiter's office back in Tennessee and said, I'm going to be a pilot. And when he got done laughing, he's like, okay, well, maybe you need to be a little bit older, and here's some things that you have to do first. I'm not sure if anybody else's experience went like that. But so I joined, enlisted, and he said, maybe go do this air medical evacuation thing. So I actually ended up in healthcare for 7 years. In serving in that way, which was great. I got to work with patients around the world in acute healthcare settings, so think combat medic, but also flight qualified. It turns out eventually I got all my quals and I got picked up to fly C-17. So the remainder of my 20 years in the Air Force, I spent flying C-17s, flying patients, flying things around the world, in and out of Iraq and Afghanistan for my whole 20s and 30s. Flying here with Lorena, one of my former load masters, which is super cool to see you here. So that was a pretty incredible experience. Everybody always wonders, why did you start a healthcare company as a pilot? I actually started out healthcare. So fast forward, got into working with startups. I was actually working with one of our flight docs on trying to bring personalized medical records to individuals, like really letting people take control of their health. And after an injury with CrossFit left me like unable to move my neck, my doctors over at Stanford, you're too young for surgery, take pain pills. And I was like, that's really not a solution that I can do. I was like, I'm a pilot. I need to get better. I was like, I'm not trying to mask pain. I was like, I'm trying to actually get better. And there were just really no solutions other than going to Google and Yelp and trying to find an acupuncturist in the back of a chiropractor's office. How do I get back to better? I was looking up, where do the athletes go when they want to train, better training? And so fast forward, I realized very quickly working in the StartX ecosystem that coming from the Air Force, if you want to develop products, I just needed a better network. I didn't have that network of support. I didn't have the bunker back in the day, and this whole amazing veteran ecosystem, which I think is developed significantly, and I'm so appreciative for. So I go to grad school. I go to do my MBA at MIT. And along the way, the other startup was kind of not fizzling out for other reasons in healthcare. And based on my injury, I realized over time, trying to find these individual health and wellness practitioners was impossible. Some of them asked me to build their websites, and I did. And then the next problem they have is marketing. So hundreds of interviews later, grad school later, Sofia Health rolled out in 2019 officially. And you can think of it like a care.com meets ZocDoc. So we have a marketplace where we help individuals find health and wellness services, and we also help practitioners who need help building their businesses. So we're trying to connect these two individuals in a very easy, meaningful way. And the Sofia brand is really there to help support people with their mental, physical, emotional, spiritual health. So think, you can go somewhere to your primary care physician, that's great, but when you're looking for preventative, holistic services, that's when you would go to Sofia Health. So that's my journey from enlisted to pilot to entrepreneur.
All right, I love these stories. This is perfect. And yes, absolutely, we should have probably rebranded this the health tech panel. But that being said, one of the reasons that we're all sitting up here together is one big statistic or small statistic. 2.3% of total capital goes to sole female founding companies, right? And so we do have a bit of a mix up here of founding teams, but that's still quite startling. While performance is 63% better for companies that are of mixed gender or women founders. So there's a quite a big gap there. So what I'd love for you ladies to do next is possibly talk about how you view funding and your funding journeys.
Sure, I'll go first. So building a health and wellness credit card is a very capital intensive business, as many of you are probably familiar with finance in some way, shape, or form. So our funding journey has been actually my, Derek, who's our founder and CEO and my friend, he raised a couple $1 million before anyone even started at the company. And then when I joined, we started pursuing a seed round. So we raised about $15 million total for pre-seed and seed. We are going to be soon going after our Series A, and we need money to basically get the wheel moving when it comes to acquiring customers, allowing them to use credit through us, and then us having to have the debt on our balance sheet until people pay us back. So it's a very cash-intensive business. I guess before coming into this role, felt like fundraising was this like glamorous, romanticized experience of like, you know, Silicon Valley and walking into beautiful buildings and getting wined and dined and all of that stuff. And while it is amazing to meet really accomplished people and learn from them, I will say like fundraising is really not fun, and it's a distraction from what I love to do, which is build and operate the business. And so I guess I just wanted to say that, as you don't have to love fundraising. You don't have to always be talking about like, I raised all this money. Like actually raising money is, while it's a necessary thing for us, especially for my type of business, it means that you're spending a lot of time doing that and giving away a large chunk of your business. So long story short, we are raising we have to raise a lot of money to get our business off the ground, given what type of company we are.
And to make sure you have your platform, are you raising anytime soon?
Oh, yes, we will be raising soon. We are at this really critical juncture at our company where we're finding product market fit and acquiring users. So we're trying to get about 1,000 users here in the next month or so, and then get some numbers on the board. It's a different market now, as everyone has said a million times, than about a year ago. And so the barrier to entry is much higher when it comes to showing results and showing that we can acquire users and build a profitable business. So yeah, going out there pretty soon, but heads down, really trying to get some wins on the board and get some users.
That's fantastic. Thanks for that perspective. And yeah, and we've got a different perspective from your... They're working, right? Yeah, okay. There we go.
Okay. Wow, for me, it's my least favorite part of being an entrepreneur. Fortunately, I did this at a stage of my career, my husband, where I literally said to him, look, I manage the house, I do all this, I had a good paying job, you're gonna write me a check for $150,000 every year, and it's all going into my company. And I'm totally serious. So we poured a lot of money into RokketMed over 7 or 8 years, but I had to be, because I started in 2014, I had 2 boys, my youngest was 6 months, the other was 2.5, and I started building an app, right? So I needed to be able to have the conversations with big companies, the relationships that I had access to start this concept, like, is there a there? But I knew it was going to be slow because I had these 2 little boys, and it's also healthcare that's very slow, so that's a good thing. I wasn't like, a turf battle like Uber and Lyft are in, right? So, but it created some tension with my investor, husband, myself at times, right? How much more money are we putting into this? But now we're in a good place, and so I am raising money now. A convertible note. I don't want to do a priced round yet. Obviously, healthcare is a $4 trillion industry. RokketMed is not there to serve all of it, but a lot of it. So it's a massive opportunity, and we're on a trajectory where I need to hire a team and bring more resources in. I've done all outsourced IT because that's allowed me to build the technology very nimbly, not hire engineers, et cetera, do a ton of it on my own. But all of the investor calls I've had are just extremely painful. And I'll tell you, that's with men and sadly with women as well. I've talked to even women investors that are with groups and they're the sole female investor on that team. And for some reason, I feel like we get a little queen bee perspective syndrome with it. So what I would like to say is, like, funds need to have 40% representation of women at minimum for us to get equality and really think about this experience, because otherwise the behavior, and that's not unknown, right? It's boards that have one woman compared to boards that have 4 or 5 females, right, that are not alone in maybe the conversation they want to have. So it's been extremely hard. I love focusing on the customer. I keep rotating over there, trying to bring more customers in. But you know, the time comes when we want to scale, move outside of the San Francisco market, go across California. We've also started moving into delivery, which we identified during COVID. We stood up some testing process. It worked really well. There's a massive gap in the market. So we have a couple angles that will, you know, move us in various areas. So we know we need money. But yeah, I don't enjoy the process at all. So if anybody has any advice, I am all ears.
Yeah, so our fundraising journey was similar. So similar to my experience back in the day when the recruiter left when I wanted to be a pilot, and this was 22 years ago. You go in and try to pitch your company, and as a female, they think that's hilarious, especially when you don't come from tech. So somehow we stumbled our way through grad school. I did actually build a lot of the landing pages, did a lot of the testing. I did actually build a lot of this stuff myself. I think as a founder, you just have to learn how to do it yourself. And I can't underestimate how good it is to be in sales as a founder and how critical those skills are. But as far as fundraising, it was painful. And so we didn't actually raise externally. We've put in a lot of our own money. I have a partner who actually provides a lot of our tech and support. So we do have internal a tech team who actually cleaned up a lot of when I try to outsource it myself. So I was very lucky in that regard. I'm also a pilot at United Airlines, so I actually put all my money in working hard, working 2 jobs, trying to put all my money into my company. So because that was so brutal. And one of the things I realized with fundraising with women, just looking across the industry, you know, we're just different. So I think a lot of times, you know, being in the area, and I was in Palo Alto for a long time doing a few startups, we just learned like you're really looking to, you know, people look for pattern matching still, and the numbers prove that, as Lenore just said. And I think that a lot of times, you know, you want to go in here and I'm going to raise money and here's how we're going to be a $1 billion business. It doesn't mean you're not a good business if you're not going to go for the money and be a $1 billion business. And I think fundamentally women just tell stories differently, right? So if we look at the hiring industry and look at people, now that I've done a lot of hiring, women generally are not going to come and apply to your company until you're 100% qualified. And they're going to tell you exactly what to expect, and this is how it's going to be. We want reasonable expectations. Where men will come in and apply, I think statistically they said, before they're even 60% qualified for the role, and tell you how they're going to crush it and kill it. And of course that story sounds amazing. Who doesn't want to hire the person who's going to tell you that? Who doesn't want to fund the company who walks in the room and tells you how you're going to take your idea and your deck and you're going to make $1 billion? It sounds exciting. I just think fundamentally I had a hard time with that. I think I had a hard time telling that story of, here's how we're going to be $1 billion. Well, I think we're going to do this. I think here's how we're going to do it, and here's what I'm going to try. You know, very specific, and maybe that didn't resonate. So again, to echo her sentiments, if you guys have any advice or tips, you know, by all means, let us know. In the meantime, what I was pretty good at was sales. And so I just focused on getting the next customer, because also fundraising on a lean team, it takes all of your attention away from actually running the company. And some friends over at TFX, they said if you can remotely get traction and take money from customers, they're like, do it. They're like, when you go into fundraising, it will be the most expensive money that you pay for. And so I really took that to heart, and I said, we're going to back out of trying to go for that initial seed. And I was like, how do we get to the next 500K to $1 million ARR on our own? And we're almost there, which I'm super proud of. It's not hard. I mean, it's very hard. It's not easy at all. But that's kind of why I pivoted out of focusing on this over-glamorized industry of, I've got a business idea, I'm just going to go raise some money, to let's focus on profitability for once and talk about what it's like to build a business. And so this is kind of how we've gotten ourselves here, for better or worse, right? We'll look at hindsight 2020 if this was the way to go, or maybe we're being too slow. We'll find out, but we're just looking for that next customer. So if you have any healthcare systems looking for health and wellness preventative services, give us a call.
Yeah, and look, as a seed stage funder, I couldn't agree more with that advice, right? So, even when you do end up raising rounds, you'll be able to keep more of your equity, and that's fantastic. If you decide to go that route, if not, keep building. Like, that's fantastic. So I think you did start to speak to some of the challenges of being an entrepreneur, being a founder. So any other challenges and how you overcame them? Any stories like that I think would be appreciated.
I'll lead it off again. So a couple, I guess, this is an interesting question, but the things that come to mind for me as the challenges of being a co-founder or just being at an early stage company as an early employee, it's all on you. Like, no one, if you're not doing it, no one's doing it. Like, that's it. Like, you can't really expect someone else to pick up the ball unless you told them to do it and then follow up on it. So it's all on you. I think there's a constant need to be simplifying everything and prioritizing everything. And so the more you can take things off the plate, consolidate them into one thing or one idea, and make your priorities very clear for yourself and your team, the better. You need to be able to change altitude constantly. And so I'm responding to a customer email 1 second, and then the next minute, figuring out our financial model for our capital market strategy. I think the other thing that I've learned is that you just have to constantly deal with rejection and failure and punches in the face and feedback, negative and sometimes positive, but negative from people internally and externally, and just like being able to realize that that's just part of the job, and it's never going to not be like that. Like, and if you stop hearing the feedback and stop hearing the bad stuff from your team especially, that's a really bad sign, because it means they don't trust you, they don't want to talk to you, they don't feel safe. And that's a really red flag, in my opinion, for people who are going to leave and for a bad company culture. So those are just a few things.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's a ton of fun. I was never going to go work for another company again. I personally love working. I don't know if and when I will ever retire. If you haven't looked into the blue zone, look into the blue zone concept, because that's how people live forever. And so entrepreneurship and building my own company was always going to be. So it's always been a long game, always. So that's really helped, because without a doubt, especially in healthcare, they're all expecting you to fail and not be around 3 or 4 years from now. And I think like the book Good to Great highlights it really, really well, because the majority of companies are at a different inflection point after 10 years. We have this warped concept that it all happens overnight, and for many it can, because they get so much money. This down round and this experience right now will probably do a little bit of a reset. No doubt we'll boomerang back to where we were, last year, probably 4 years from now. But it will hopefully, back to what Riley said, there's going to be a shift. Clearly, the venture capitalists and the funders already up on the stage were indicating, right? They want to see profitability. They want less burn. They want to know there's customers, traction, et cetera. And so, I've always kind of gone at this also. Again, we're moms. She's soon to be a mom. It is about pacing yourself, because if you don't have a family, at the end of the day, when you build this company, what's the point, right? And these are also the realities of being a female founder and being really, really good with that. Quite frankly, wearing the fact that you are a mom on your sleeve, because you're all probably married, or many of you, and you see what the mother does in the household. And so, kind of manage expectations. We don't have the stories, like Riley said, that we're going to go out and crush this thing and have this hockey stick in 2 years, because they're not going to either, and we're not lying to you. So, it's a little bit of like, we're modeling for our kids all the time. Like, we want our kids to grow up and be good people. There's a little bit of that. That's the DNA of who we are, but know that we work really, really hard. We're extraordinarily time efficient. We triage better than most, and definitely because we have to. So these are really good qualities that I feel like sometimes are overlooked. And as an entrepreneur, you just have to remind yourself of that when you feel like, oh God, this has been a long week, it's been a long month. Is it actually gonna work? And then you're like, yeah, just stay in it. So those are some of the things that, and I've been at this for a while now. I feel really good where we are, and also, be prepared and ready to pivot, because there are opportunities to pivot, and the moment you hear that opportunity in your market, then you go for it. And it's not, or iterate, right? Whatever the right word is. It wasn't because I was wrong before, but this is something I'm gonna move into because it makes sense. So,
Riley, up to you, or I can turn over to questions from the audience.
Oh, does anybody have questions? I think Katherine and Tracy did an amazing job on that. The only other thing I was going to say to her point was, I think it's really hard when you see these overnight successes, and that's just not the reality, right? So especially, I won't speak for you, but in my journey of, maybe we should go back and take money because it looks so easy. It's not ever easy. You don't ever know what's going on behind the scenes, but also because you want to grow and you want to go, go, go. So I think having that mindset that this is the long game, I think is really great. But I think it's really easy to get into, oh my gosh, this company just raised so many millions of dollars. When you're alone and you're with your team and your little lean team and you're trying to make things go and sales calls and all the things. And I think it's really hard when you see that news of just this instant overnight successes. So I think that was another piece that's pretty hard. It's not the reality, but still part of that is just not fun to see when you're trying to make your company get off the ground and go as fast as possible, getting through product market fit. You're all going to have the same challenges. All the veterans and entrepreneurs in the room, it's all the same. But to me, I think that was hard to see the glamour overnight successes.
One thing I was just going to add to that is that LinkedIn is the worst, especially for that. If it's constant comparison. It's like Instagram, but for your career. And yeah, I feel like that's
social media.
That's exactly what everything on LinkedIn looks like. Is we raised $4 bajillion and we're amazing, but actually they probably worked for 10 years for that and sacrificed everything. And anyway, sorry, LinkedIn.
No, I think that's absolutely right. And I just want to say, Tracy, when I was LinkedIn stalking you this morning, I noticed that you actually put the time that you spent at home on your LinkedIn and normalized that and said, hey, I was focused on the home for a couple of years, while you were getting RokketMed off the ground. And I think behavior like that will actually really change things, right? When we do surface, it isn't the smooth rocket ship to the top, for 20 straight years.
But we can say it is fundraising.
Got a question over here.
Hey, it's this guy again.
Yes.
What's going on? My name is Sal. I'm going to put on another hat and say I'm here as one of the members of the MedTech Vets cohort, and I have two awesome members of my cohort, Danielle and Melanie, who I would love to introduce you guys to. Can we connect after so I can hook you guys up with two super badass pilot moms that want to get into med sales?
Immediately.
Okay, got it. Thanks.
That's perfect. That's why we're here, right? And I think, some of us were a little, I don't want to say leery, but coming straight out, probably weren't as willing to engage in the network. At least I know that I wasn't. I thought I should get where I wanted to go on my resume. That was it. And creating connections like that for us, incredibly helpful. So thank you very much. And for them.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Jung. I also am an entrepreneur too, and really admire what you guys have told us. It really struck me as being so disappointing that you guys had such a bad experience, or you don't, fundraising. And I totally agree. I think sometimes, there's maybe different cultures. Maybe it's nurture and nature versus the way that men and women do it. I don't think people mean it that way, but so a couple of us have started a group called Athena Angels, and we're trying to get more women invested. It's actually not just women for the investors, but men and women investing in women entrepreneurs who are veterans. So if you guys are interested, and if there's any investors out there who are looking to invest in women, please go to athenaangels.com. I'll try to connect with you guys too.
Well, I'll come find you right after.
Sincerely,
I'll come find you guys.
We're all hunting you down after this. Microphones are coming around.
Hi, my name is Sandra, and I really appreciate your stories and your vulnerability to express all the journeys that you've been on. My one question is, moms are pretty badass, women are badass, we all know that, and your intuition is really always spot on, right? You know when something's up, and you know how to pivot and navigate when it comes to family and especially work, but you're all alone doing that. So what do you do in the business context, in your work? Where do you lean on? Who do you lean on to make the right decisions and know that you're making the right decisions so that you can get to the next level? That's where I find the critical moments that are really difficult when you're alone and you might not have a partner to lean on, but how do you know to trust to get to the next level? Where do you make those decision points?
I'll take that, at least initially. Yeah, I mean, it's a great question because I don't have a huge team, but I have, you know, a quite experienced team. And I also have my husband who's got great experience in leadership and healthcare. And I have, over the years, you know, I can't say enough about business development and relationships. So I have, you know, people that I can call on that are CEOs of insurance companies, variety of people that are not formal advisors, but kind of informal advisors, and I follow up with and stuff. Those are the people that I lean on. And so the one thing I feel like and we're all probably quite good at this in vets because this is not an engineering tech-focused VC world, but you just hone those skills of bringing those people in and having those relationships so that in moments when you are lean and young, you can turn to those very experienced resources. That's what I do.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I totally agree. I think one of the questions we were noodling on was like, what are 3 habits that you have that like help you be successful or whatever. And one of the ones I was thinking of is just asking for help and just being totally unabashed about that. And I think most people will give you help if you ask for it, and not trying to even pretend that you know everything or know anything, and leaning into that I think is really huge. I think also it's the 3 of us as co-founders, and I think we have invested a ton of time into building trust and the foundation that we can literally say anything to each other and have that person to call. So I know it's a big decision to bring on a co-founder, but I do think it does help with that because you have those trusted people who you can talk to about anything on your side.
And the only thing that I'll add to that, so we do have a business partner, I do as well, but the only other thing I was going to say is you can call 1 million people and get 1 million responses. At the end of the day, you have to be able to make those decisions and take in all the opinions from all the super amazing smart people that you meet while you are networking, and then put it together and see how do you want to run your business and make that decision. And we do that annually. We look at, you know, where do we want to go? What's our strategy for the next year? But I think a lot of times you're not going to know. I think hindsight's 20/20. So I think you just have to make the best decision you can with the resources and the information that you have available.
I also would offer, I feel like after I transitioned out, I mean, there's obviously a lot of amazing men in my network, but going through business school, I ran into some just absolutely incredible women entrepreneurs and like found my wolf pack. So like 2 of my best like friends from business school on the same text thread, you know, one runs Lenore Health. It's a $400 million mental health platform, and the other one was the CFO of a publicly traded company. This is 10 years out of business school, so they're just incredible, and they're also moms. And so like those are the 2 women in my life that I go to for advice pretty consistently.
I would trust that advice.
These are those friends. All right, I think we have time for one more question.
I have a healthcare-related question.
Perfect. That's what we want.
So I'm Tony Karamis, CEO of the Navy, Submariner. The question is, like, if anybody's run a business, the hardest thing to do is like manage costs of healthcare. So when we started our company, we wanted to be really fast to give people 100% coverage in their healthcare, so we did it at like 15 people. And every year, the most obnoxious, scary thing is, how much is my health insurance going to be next year? And sometimes it's like $100,000 difference, and then we got to shop the plan around. So we have a panel of experts in healthcare, and of course, as veterans, like we never thought about healthcare until we got out, right? It was just like this thing that happened. So what are your thoughts on the industry? I mean, every year it's 40% more cost. It's going to break at some point. Where's that going? And what advice do you have to small businesses for helping provide high quality healthcare without bankrupting your company?
So I have your answer right here. So this is what the Affordable Care Act teed up for all of us. There's a lot of bad rap on it, but when it's done right, it will be extraordinarily disruptive. We need public options that are in the marketplace today that are 50% less or more than the premiums you're all paying. If your company is 50 employees or less, you and your employees all qualify for state and federal subsidies. So what you would do, you could reach out. We would put you on what's called a Qualified Small Employer HRA. You fund it to the amount that you want to fund it. They're going to go to the federal government. They're going to opt in for the plan they want, which means you're not trying to pick a plan and change every year. And then based on the income, they're going to get subsidies for the federal government, right, on what that affordability. So we can talk, but this is where it's got to go. There are now policies, federal policies, and this is what RokketMed is all about, is leveraging this. If you're 50 employees or more, you can get out of the group health and business. If you've got employees all over in multiple states, you fund an individual contribution HRA, and all those workers go to an exchange and buy the insurance they want. The power of that, and we have clients that do this, if I'm married and my husband is on a different plan, that money I just got from my employer is now to fund and pay for my deductible, self-pay care, and all that. It becomes a better benefit. This all exists today. Because it all came into place 2020 and COVID hit, nobody knows about this, and brokers are not going to talk about it. This literally, it doesn't disintermediate insurance yet, but good quality public options will disintermediate United, Blues, and everybody else. It'll force them to bring the price down, but it does disintermediate the broker community.
I want to tack onto that. We actually at my company we used a QSERA, the first thing last year, and now we're using an ICRA, the second thing that Tracy said this year. And we actually believe there's going to be more and more and more businesses and people who are going that route because it is better for the employer, and it is also actually ends up being better for the consumer. That's going to be a big part of our business once we add on the healthcare option to our card, is the ability to choose an individual plan through our platform, which is then portable with you for your whole life. You never have to change plans. You don't have to change when you move employers. You keep that health insurance for as long as you want and to switch it. But yeah, ICRA, I have a couple companies I can refer you to that do this and administer it on behalf of your business as well.
Perfect. All right, so Tim's coming up and giving us the hook, but I just want to say, thank you so much to Katherine, Tracy, and Riley for being up here and for doing this and for your insights and your time. And to Tim, again, the whole Context Ventures team, everyone associated with this event, this has been amazing. So thank you so much.